I didn't cry at my grandmother's funeral. Not because I didn't love her, because grief hadn't caught up with me yet. I was still in the NUMB part, signing forms, nodding at people, saying, "Thank you for coming," over and over, until the words stopped meaning anything. It hit me 3 days later, in her house on Maple Street, going through the closet in her sewing room. That's where I found the cedar box. It was pushed to the very back of the top shelf, behind a stack of quilting patterns she never finished, locked and taped underneath it, a small brass key, like she wanted someone to find it, just not yet. My grandmother had lived in that house for 58 years. Every drawer smelled like lavender sachets and old paper. I'd spent half my childhood in that sewing room, cutting scraps of fabric while she hummed to herself. I thought I knew every inch of it. I was wrong. Inside the box was a ring, not the one she'd worn next to my grandfather's for almost 60 years. A different ring, plain gold, worn thin, and engraved on the inside, T and E, forever. My grandmother's name was Eleanor. My grandfather's name was Walter. Who was T? I almost put the box back. I almost told myself it was nothing. An old piece of jewelry from before she married Grandpa. No big deal. People have lives before marriage. But then, I found the photograph underneath it. My grandmother, maybe 20 years old, standing on a porch I didn't recognize, holding a baby. She was smiling in that photo, the way she never smiled in any picture I'd ever seen of her. Not posed, not polite, real. On the back, in pencil, almost too faded to read, Margaret Ann, 6 weeks old. I didn't know anyone named Margaret Ann. I brought the box to my mother that night. I watched her face change the second she saw the ring. "Mom," I said, "who's T?" She didn't answer right away. She just sat down at the kitchen table, the same table my grandmother used to sit at every Sunday, and she stared at that ring like it was going to explain itself. "Your grandmother," she finally said, "was married before your grandfather, for about a year. His name was Thomas. He died. A logging accident, I think, before I was born. She never talked about him. I only found out myself when I was maybe 16, and I was told never to bring it up. That explained the ring. It did not explain the baby." "Mom," I said, "who's Margaret?" And that's when my mother went very, very quiet. I want to back up for a second, because to understand why this mattered so much, you have to understand my family had another secret already. One that wasn't hidden in a box, but sitting right out in the open, that nobody talked about anyway. Her name was Ruth. Ruth was my grandfather's much younger sister, or that's what I always understood. She'd been raised by my great-grandparents, alongside my grandfather, though there was a big age gap between them. And somewhere back in the 70s, before I was even born, there had been a falling out. Nobody would ever tell me the details. All I knew was that Ruth had been cut off from the family for over 40 years. My grandmother sent her a Christmas card every single year, and every single year, it came back unopened. We assumed my grandmother did that out of guilt, out of loyalty to my grandfather's memory, maybe, family obligation. We had no idea what it actually meant. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was shaking. "The baby in that photo," she said, "is Ruth." I felt the floor tilt a little. "Ruth is your grandfather's sister," I said. "That doesn't make sense." "That's what we were all told," my mother said. "That's what Ruth was told too." Over the next 2 weeks, we found the rest of it, piece by piece, object by object, like my grandmother had built a trail, on purpose, for someone patient enough to follow it. A savings passbook, decades old, with a small deposit made every single year on the same date, March 14th, for over 50 years straight. A drawer of letters, never sent, all addressed the same way. To my girl. A folder of newspaper clippings, Ruth's high school graduation, Ruth's wedding announcement, an article about a bakery Ruth had opened in another state. My grandmother had kept every trace of a life she was never supposed to be part of. And finally, at the very bottom of the box, an adoption record. Eleanor's husband Thomas had died before Margaret Ann, before Ruth, was even a year old. Eleanor was young, alone, and it was a different world back then. Her own mother made the decision for her. The baby was given to Thomas's sister and her husband to raise. My great-grandparents. Eleanor was told it was for the best. She was told to move on, remarry, start over. She was never told she'd get to stop loving her. When Eleanor married my grandfather Walter years later, she became, in the strangest, quietest way possible, her own daughter's sister-in-law. She watched Ruth grow up 2 houses down. She went to her graduation. She sat in the back at her wedding. She never said a word. And when the falling out happened, whatever it truly was, and Ruth was pushed out of the family, Eleanor didn't fight for her to stay, because fighting for her would have meant explaining why. So instead, she loved her the only way she was allowed to. From a distance, a card every Christmas, a deposit every March, a folder of clippings, a drawer of unsent letters. 50 years of loving someone in secret. I didn't know what to do with that. Honestly, for a few days, I was angry that Ruth grew up thinking she'd been abandoned. Angry that my grandmother let an entire family believe a woman was a stranger when she was actually the reason my grandmother got out of bed every March 14th. But then I thought about what it must have cost her to watch, to never say it, to love someone for half a century and never once get to call her daughter out loud. There was one more thing at the bottom of the drawer. Underneath all those unsent letters, a single Polaroid, more recent than the others, maybe 10 years old. My grandmother, gray-haired by then, standing across a parking lot from a woman with a bakery apron on, not talking to her, just watching, like she'd driven 2 hours just to stand there for 5 minutes and see her face. On the back, in handwriting that had gotten shakier with age, close enough today, she looked happy. That's when I stopped being angry and started to understand what 50 years of loving someone from a distance actually looks like. It doesn't look dramatic. It looks like a woman standing quietly across a parking lot, memorizing a face she wasn't allowed to claim, then driving home alone. We found Ruth's current address in one of the clippings. She still ran that bakery. She was 71 years old. My mother and I drove 3 hours to find her. I won't pretend that conversation was easy. Ruth cried before we even finished explaining. She said she always felt like there was a piece of her own story missing. She just never imagined it was this. She asked to see the letters. We gave her all of them. She read every single one, standing in her own kitchen, in complete silence, for almost an hour. When she finally looked up, she said something I don't think I'll ever forget. She was there my whole life, Ruth said. I just didn't know which one she was. We stayed at her kitchen table for hours that day. Ruth pulled out her own box, an old shoebox of photographs she'd forgot since she was a little girl. And for the first time, we went through both boxes together, matching dates, matching handwriting, piecing together 2 sides of the same 50-year story. Somewhere around the 3rd hour, Ruth laughed for the first time, a real laugh. She said it felt strange to finally know the shape of the hole that had always been there. We told the rest of the family a few weeks later, at a dinner none of us will forget. Some relatives cried. A couple of them got quiet and needed time. My uncle, who had barely spoken about the old falling out in decades, finally admitted he never even knew the real reason for it. He'd just inherited the silence, the way families do, without ever questioning where it came from. Ruth came to Thanksgiving that year. She sat where my grandmother used to sit. Nobody planned that. It just happened. My grandmother didn't leave us a clean ending. She didn't leave a letter explaining everything, tied with a bow. She left us a box, a key, and 50 years of quiet proof that she never stopped loving someone she wasn't allowed to claim. I used to think I knew my grandmother completely. Now I think the truth is, nobody gets to know a whole person. We only get the parts they let us see. And sometimes, the parts they hide are the ones that mattered most. If this story stayed with you, the way it stayed with me, I'd love for you to stay a little longer. Come be part of our family here at True Kinship. We tell stories exactly like this one. Real, quiet, human stories about the families we think we know. Subscribe, so we never have to say goodbye at the end of a video. We can just say, see you in the next story.